She walked in on a Tuesday evening when the rain had just started. And my husband, the man who had never flinched at anything in his life, went completely still. That's when I knew. Something in this house had just changed forever. Before she came, the house was quiet in a particular way that certain houses are. Not peaceful, controlled. Every surface reflected something polished and cold. Marble floors that held your footsteps but gave nothing back. Floor-to-ceiling glass looking out over a city that never slept. A kitchen that had never once smelled like something baking. Sofia had learned the geometry of Ethan's life slowly. Not through conversation, he wasn't a man who explained himself, but through watching. The way he took his coffee standing up, always facing the window. The way he left space in the bed even when she moved toward him. The way his hands would hover near her sometimes, close enough to touch, and then quietly pull back. She had told herself it was his nature, that some men loved at a careful distance, like cupped hands holding water, afraid to grip, afraid to spill. She had been wrong. About the distance, about the hands, about all of it. She understood this now on a Tuesday evening. Standing near a window she had looked out of 1,000 times, as a stranger walked through the door and the room rearranged itself around her. Her name was Nora. Sofia heard it first from his assistant, a careless mention over the phone during dinner. Nora Vance is flying in from London. She'll be at the Whitmore dinner. Nothing more. Just a name. But Ethan's jaw had tightened in a way Sofia had seen only once before the night his father called, unannounced after 3 years of silence. That kind of tightening. The body bracing for something the mind already knows is coming. She arrived on a Tuesday. Rain outside, soft and relentless. Sofia was standing near the hallway when the elevator opened and Nora stepped through, and she understood, immediately, wordlessly, that this was not a stranger. This was a memory with a body. Ethan crossed the room slowly, not like himself. He moved the way people move when they are trying not to run. He stopped 2 feet from her, just looked, and Nora looked back. No greeting, no embrace, just that terrible, enormous silence. The kind that only happens between people who have said everything there is to say and then watched it disappear anyway. Sofia stood near the window. The rain moved down the glass in long, crooked lines. She didn't exist in that moment. Not to him. Not in that room. She understood that quietly. The way you understand something that breaks you without sound. Later, because memory always works backward, she found them everywhere. The photograph in his study he'd kept, face down so naturally. She'd assumed it meant nothing. A woman's silhouette. Dark hair. One hand lifted mid-gesture. She had never asked. The nights he came home and sat alone in the dark living room before bed. Not working, just sitting. The worn paperback on the shelf. She'd once pulled free because she liked the cover. He'd taken it gently from her hands and slid it back without a word. His fingers resting on the spine a moment too long. After Nora arrived, those details rearranged themselves. Not random anymore. Evidence. She wasn't jealous. That was what unsettled her most. She was clear-eyed. And clarity, she learned, could wound more deeply than jealousy ever could. It felt like waking inside a story she thought belonged to her, only to realize she had entered somewhere in the middle. You can be loved with kindness. You can be treated with care, and still remain just outside. The place where someone's heart truly lives. He didn't change. That was the cruelest part. He still came to her side of the bed at night. Still rested his hand near her shoulder, not on it, but near it. In that hovering way she had learned to read as his version of closeness. Still brought coffee in the morning. Still remembered she hated the taste of orange peel in anything. He was kind. He was careful. But kindness and love are not the same thing. She knew that now. She had always known it, probably. She had simply chosen not to look. One evening she found him on the balcony. Nora was gone by then, back to London. But Ethan stood at the railing, looking at the skyline the way people look at something they've lost. Sofia watched him from the doorway. She noticed the weight in his shoulders. the tilt of his head, the particular stillness of a man carrying something he would not put down. He wasn't thinking about the city. She stepped back inside without a word. Some conversations are not meant to be spoken. Some truths live in the body long before they reach the mouth. And some people spend their whole lives in love with a ghost, holding the person beside them carefully, faithfully, but never quite landing. She had been held carefully. She had not been landed. She didn't confront him, not with anger. She waited until a Sunday, gray and slow, the kind of morning that carries no urgency. And she sat across from him at the kitchen table and asked simply, "Who was she to you?" No trembling, no performance. Just the question placed between them like something breakable. Ethan set his cup down, looked at the table first, then at her, and his face did something she had never seen it do in 3 years of marriage. It surrendered. Not into confession, not into an avalanche of words, just into openness. Like a door that had been locked for a very long time, finally giving under its own weight. He said her name. Just that, Nora. One word, but the way he said it, the exhale in it, the years in it, that single syllable contained an entire life that Sofia had not been part of. She thought, I have been living in a house that was already full. Every room was already taken. And I walked in with my heart wide open and built my life in the spaces between his grief. She didn't cry. She sat with it. The truth, quiet and whole, settling into her bones like something that had always been there. Only now she had finally stopped looking away from it. And then Ethan, for the first time in 3 years, reached across the table. His hand covered hers. Not hovering, not careful, landing. She looked at him, at the exhaustion in his face, the remorse that lived just beneath the surface of him, and something else, something she had glimpsed before but been afraid to name. He said, I chose this life. I chose you. I choose it still. She studied him for a long time. Choosing wasn't the same as longing. She knew that. But she also knew she was tired of standing at the edge of him. And she thought, maybe so was he. Maybe they had both been standing at separate windows, watching each other, waiting for someone to finally open the door. She turned her hand beneath his, let her fingers close around his. The rain came down against the windows in long, soft lines. Nothing was resolved. Nothing was clean. No wound that deep closes in a single morning. But something that had been hovering between them for 3 years, something patient and unspoken and aching, finally, quietly landed. They say you can tell everything about a love by what it survives, not what it celebrates. What it survives? And maybe that's the story. Not the woman who returned, not the silence that almost swallowed them both, but the moment to people who had been living beside each other finally chose to live toward each other. Grief is not the opposite of love. Sometimes it is just love's older name. And choosing again, in the full knowledge of everything might be the bravest thing any of us ever do. The most disarming thing in the world is not charm. It is being truly, carefully, patiently seen. If this story reached you, you already know why. Like, follow, stay.